Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I've got something pretty exciting and pretty breaking news. So, during the WCI 2024 stream on the Sunday, so the final day, they had some of the developers on, and the developers were talking basically about their roadmap for 2025. Obviously, we didn't get particularly any concrete detail, but we got some really cool insights and cool teasers that I'm going to give to you and go over today. So, we're going to start off with Holiday Ops 2024-2025. So this is the Holiday Ops that's happening this December. There's going to be no recycling of previous year's content. So we're going to have a brand new celebrity who they say is top notch. And we're expecting some surprises. As to what they're going to be, we're going to have to wait and see. But let's have a look at what's coming next. So, we have updates for 2025. So there are a number of major updates on the schedule, on the roadmap for 2025. Namely, we're going to have a focus on the balancing, so the statistical balancing of Tier 6, Tier 7, and Tier 8. What does that mean? Well, it's likely we're going to see a number of tank rebalances. So tanks that are overpowered being nerfed, tanks that are underpowered getting a buff. That's likely what that's going to mean. But it looks like this kind of rebalancing is going to come hand in hand with a new Matchmaker. So, this Matchmaker is going to have a quality of life focus. What does that mean? Well, that likely means it's basically going to make it a little bit more comfortable to play. So we're probably, and we're going to have a look at this in a second, looking at the removal of some of the more annoying nuances of the Matchmaker. Similarly, we're getting some new events. So 2024 brought us the Halloween event, the new updated Halloween event with the Last Stand mode. It looks like they really liked that, and the community feedback was really overwhelmingly positive for that. So it looks like we're going to get some more similar events along the same line, which will be really cool. There's going to be a huge number of new tanks with new mechanics, apparently. As to what that means, we're not 100% sure yet, but we'll have a little bit of a theorize about that in a second. There's going to be new maps, thank God, because 2024 is the first calendar year in World of Tanks history that we've not had a single new map. The last new map we got was Oyster Bay in February 2023. So as of February 2025, it'll have been 2 years since a new map. Not good. So hopefully we're going to get a new map pretty soon into 2025. And then we're going to be getting continued Onslaught updates and development, with it becoming their main focus for competitive. So obviously this WCI 2024 Chinese event, that was taking place in the Onslaught mode. It looks like they are really enjoying the way that Onslaught's going, and they have a lot of plans for the future, which we'll get into in a second. Let's have a look at the next section, new maps. So, Airship Yard was directly mentioned, so Airship Yard was name dropped. I have a video on Airship Yard. I'll pop a little card up in the top right corner now, so for you to go check that video out at the end. Airship Yard was name dropped, so it looks like that is going to be our next new map. Pretty much confirmed. Obviously, stuff can change later on, but I'd imagine Airship Yard would be our next new map hopefully early 2025. And they also kind of gave us a little bit of an insight into the way they want to go with new maps. So they want new maps to be open, but without the common problems of open maps. So what are those open problems? Well, the common problems of open maps are lines of fire. So not being able to be safe because there's so many lines of fire into you. Open crossings, so crossing to a position being open and, there being one position that spots you and farms you. No progression, because if it's an open map, it's really hard to put progression in because you have to cross over the open. So maybe they're going to be doing open maps, but with progression. I'd like to see that. Similar to some of the Overlord and the Highway update map changes we saw late 2024. Maybe something along the vein of that, but we'll have to see. Maybe we're going to see the return of some previously tested maps. So, for example, going back to 2022, we had that recon mode with 6 new maps. We've seen 2 of them, or we're going to likely see 2 of them. We've seen Oyster Bay already. Airship Yard is likely going to be our newest map in 2025. But then the other 3 that were kind of really well received by the community was Far East, Canyon, and Aquila. these were 3 maps which were really well received, but we actually haven't seen anything of since. So maybe we'll see a return of them. Now let's have a look at the new tanks. So they have confirmed we have new mechanics on the way. But what does this mean? Does this mean new mechanics to the game? So a brand new mechanic, for example, like the double-barreled British heavy tanks mechanic, which is coming in January 2025? Or are we just talking about new to a nation or a tank type? Because if we're talking about new to a nation or a tank type, there are a number of tanks currently being tested on the super test, which brings a new mechanic to that nation or tank type. For example, there is the Object Kust, which is a Soviet Tier 8 tank destroyer, which has the SDRV's hydropneumatic suspension for a tank destroyer. There is the German Kanonen Jagdpanther 2, which is bringing also the siege mode, so the SGRV's mechanic, to the German TDs. There's also a number of other tanks which are bringing different nations' mechanics that are already in the game to a new nation or a new tank type. One important one, which I haven't mentioned, is the SVAC 105, which is a double-barreled French tank destroyer, which is currently being tested. So maybe we see something like that, or maybe we're just going to see brand new mechanics, because obviously there is a limit to how many new mechanics they can bring in before it just starts to get very arcadey. So I wouldn't be opposed to them just bringing mechanics that are already in the game to just new nations and new tank types. That's pretty cool in my opinion. But here's some cool tanks that are currently in testing. I'll pop a card up now for 1 or 2 of them. DBV 152, that's a tier 10 Czechoslovakian tank destroyer that we are thinking is going to be the next assembly shop tank. There's the Char Murat, which is a tier 9 French medium tank, very similar to the AMX 30, but better. We're not quite sure when we're going to see this tank, but it's pretty cool. And then we have the SVAC 105, which, as I said, is that French tier 8 double-barreled tank destroyer. So there are a number of cool tanks currently being tested in the super test. I do make videos on all of the super test tanks, so don't forget to check those out. But yeah, let's have a look at matchmaking. So this is where we're going to theorize a little bit. So this is not setting gospel. This is me implying what they mean by quality of life focus on new matchmaking changes. So potentially a removal of +2, -2 matchmaking, and a replacement of that with only +1, -1 matchmaking. So that would be beneficial, especially for tier 6, tier 7, and tier 8 tanks. So for a tier 7 tank, only to be able to face tier 8s and tier 6s, a tier 8, tier 9, and tier 7, tier 9, tier 8, and tier 10, and tier 10 only being able to face tier 9s. So that would be potentially beneficial. Maybe not. We'll have to see. One of the things that would do is it would increase the HP pool in games, because there's obviously less lower tier tanks, especially at tier 10, not having tier 8 games. So potentially would see DPG potentials go up, because obviously when you've only got tier 9s and tier 10s in the game, the HP pool is larger, potential to do larger damage games. So that is there. But maybe another solution that they're thinking of is 2 separate matchmakers, one for tier 7 and below, and one for tier 8 and above. So what that would look like would basically mean that tier 7 becomes the top of that matchmaker, and they can then face all the way down to tier 5. Or maybe it's that, once again, that -1 matchmaking. So tier 6 plays tier 7, tier 5 can only play tier 6, tier 4 can only play tier 5. You get the idea? And then maybe we have a separate matchmaker for tier 8 and above that has +2, -2 matchmaking. So tier 8 can face tier 10, the same as what we have now. I don't know, this is all theorizing, but do let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you think something else? And then finally, the last little bit that I want to have a look at is ONSLORT. And I know not everyone is interested in ONSLORT, but this is going to be important because they have now shifted ONSLORT to be their primary focus and direction for competitive gameplay in World of Tanks. So, what does that mean? It basically means that they have stopped... Oh, not necessarily stopped, but they have basically shifted their entire focus of their competitive department to ONSLORT. So this could potentially mean a phase out of 15 versus 15 competitive, which personally I am against. I think that the two work hand in hand. However, Wargaming seem to not agree with that. So essentially, Onslaught's now going to be the primary focus and direction for competitive. They have a new season coming early 2025. We're expecting it to come in mid to late January, as it did in 2024. There's a number of new features and continued rebalancing of abilities on the horizon. They've said that. So what does that mean? Probably a rebalancing of some of the overpowered abilities, such as the T110E4's ability at the minute, and maybe some new abilities on the horizon. They plan for future tournaments. As to what that means, we don't really know. Does that mean just OLS Season 2, so Onslaught Legend Series Season 2? Are they planning beyond that? Are they planning future WCI events? We don't really know. But they're planning future tournaments. That's always good. Make for good watching. And there's, importantly and interestingly, an acknowledgement, an active acknowledgement that Tier 8 Onslaught was good for the game and was well received by the community. So potentially we could see future iterations of Tier 8 Onslaught. As to whether this is going to be a, along the same style of introduction as we currently have Onslaught, or is it going to become a more permanent event mode? We don't really know. But an acknowledgement that it was good is always good, because at the end of the day, Tier 8 Onslaught was great for making credits. It was good fun and kind of low stakes. So I like that. And one of the things that they said, which I think is quite ambiguous, and I don't know if this is a poor translation, is that they want to increase its strategic depth. So I don't really know what that means, technically. I mean, I can infer that essentially they want more diverse gameplay. So they want teams to kind of out-strategy each other, similar to how it used to be in 15v15 and how it is in like Clan Rivals, for example, which is the premier 15v15 clan event, essentially. They want to increase its strategic depth. So instead of it being just an all-out brawl and the best team wins on skill, they want it to kind of the best team wins on strategy now. So I don't really know how they're going to do that. That's going to be incredibly hard to implement, but that is the direction they want to take it in. So that is an overview and a pretty comprehensive look at what the developers are looking at to introduce into 2025. Obviously, we're expecting a 2025 January roadmap video. We should get that, which should go into more detail with this. And I'll make sure I get a video out covering that as soon as that comes out. But this is my addition to what they've said, my theorizations. If you do agree with me or you do disagree with me, do let me know down in the comments. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again very soon.